Hey, what are you two up to?
I'm reading a debunk thread on you.
And I'm using this information to prepare for our rematch.
Oh, that's swell. How's it going?
I'm currently going through a section on your many weaknesses, breezing through the magic section.
Seeing what magic has done to you over the years is helping me find the right combination of materia to use against you.
Say, Superman, what's that you got there with you? This? Promise you won't get mad.
Hey everybody, Daniel here. Say, did you know Superman is weak to magic? Don't worry, if you didn't know, no one's ever gonna let you forget, be they power scalers or comic book writers. Yes, Superman has a long history of struggling against magic and the supernatural. Indeed, this weakness dates all the way back to Superman 14, published in 1941, written by none other than the co-creator Jerry Siegel. Siegel would again codify this weakness in Superman 171, published in August of 1964. Yes, before writers began adding to his plethora of growing weaknesses, magic was considered one of Superman's major vulnerabilities. And that really hasn't changed all that much today, including our topic of discussion, Jason Aaron's run on Action Comics. But should it? You see, today's episode was originally going to be a review of Jason Aaron's short run on Action Comics, with a little bit of power scaling thrown in there. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this book is sort of emblematic of the way people treat Superman and magic, and how online communities react to that. You see, what I mean by this is, when it comes to Superman and magic, people want to have their cake and eat it too, and that goes for everyone. Let's get into it. First, let's go over the book again. Action Comics 1061 was the first part of DC's Superman Superstars. Superman Superstars is a 2024 DC Comics initiative that seeks to bring in big-name creators into the Superman books. With these rotative creative teams offering their own unique but still canon stories on the flagship character. The idea seems to be to let writers tell more self-contained stories so that potential readers aren't put off or bogged down by the all-oppressive atmosphere of continuity. Overall, I think it's an admirable idea, even if it takes away part of the appeal for me. I'm actually a sucker for continuity, but not everyone can lap up as much Superman content as I can. And first up on our Superstars tour was Jason Aaron. Now, if you don't know who that is, that's okay. Not everyone has an encyclopedic knowledge of comic book writers. When I first saw the name, it piqued my interest because I knew him as a big-name Marvel guy. Jason Aaron is a veteran in the industry, writing for major books and characters such as Punisher, Star Wars Darth Vader Down, and one of my all-time favorite Thor stories. So some of us were filled with a nervous excitement. It was sad to see PKJ's run come to an end, and while the idea sounded good on paper, I couldn't help but wonder if Marvel was about to send another Bendis our way. Then some of the previews came out, and I thought using Bizarro was an interesting choice. And then I heard it was going to be a tale that involved magic. Coming from the Thor guy, I thought, hey, maybe we might finally address Superman's weakness to magic in a fundamental way that a lot of us fans have been discussing, on forums and stuff over the years. And what I got was sort of what I expect from a story involving Superman and magic. Let me explain. How often have you heard a discussion like this?
One of Superman's major weaknesses is magic. No. Superman isn't weak to magic. He actually just has no special resistance to it.
Arguments like this are really prevalent because of the way writers choose to tell Superman stories. They want Superman to be weak to magic, but they need him to overcome it. This leads to writers telling us one thing, but showing something that's a little contrary. Let's just use this book as an example. In the first issue, Bizarro finds his way to a germ world where all things magic may have taken root, where the most accomplished spellcasters in all of existence live. During his confrontation with these wizards, it's established that since Bizarro is Superman's opposite, instead of being made weaker by the magic there, Bizarro is actually absorbing all of the magic. Now, this being the strongest magic in the DC multiverse, it can be a little contentious. In fact, I made a whole gag video about it when the issue first dropped. Taken at face value, which is what I tend to do in lack of contrary information, this would be an insane level of outerversal power. But let's lowball it for the sake of argument. To cast his spell, Bizarro takes Wolfsbane from the Antimatter universe, an elixir from Apocalypse, a still wriggling tongue from a fifth-dimensional imp, and unnamed ingredients from all the corners of the cosmos. At an absolute low end, Bizarro is working with fourth world and fifth dimensional energies. And I'm inclined to believe it's a lot higher than that. Jason Aaron isn't some novice writer. He may be new to DC, but he knows what terms like the strongest magic users in existence and the threads of all existence laid unspooled before him mean. He's written characters like this before. As always, I tend to lean towards words on the page meaning what they mean unless context provides contrary evidence. But more on that in a minute. So you have all that magic from the germ worlds, fifth dimensional energies, and Superman powers through all of it. Honestly, it's a great fight, but I get why people might have a certain reaction to it. Heck, again, I did that whole skit about people's reactions to it.
So Superman powers through all of this. His fans get a W and some bragging rights via all the scaling we can use. So, what's the issue? Well, that would come in Action Comics 1063, where a sane Joker helps Superman mentally battle Bizarro. Aren't comics just the best kind of weird? And then Superman lets Bizarro take over his body. The Joker then explains that, unlike Bizarro's own body, Superman's body can't handle the magic. Does that seem contrary to anyone else? No, because Superman is weak to magic, right? Well, here's a list of some of the characters that succumbed to this spell before Superman did. These characters include Lois Lane, Batman, Dr. freaking Fate, and possibly the entire Earth and all of its magic users.
So Superman is weak to magic, but is better withstanding its pressures despite being the direct target of this particular spell than the top tier magic users in the DC multiverse? What gives? This is what I mean when I say writers are wanting to have their cake and eat it too. They needed Superman to be weak against magic for the story to work, but they also need him to be able to power through all of this when it counts, for the story to also work. And this isn't a unique phenomenon to Jason Aaron. We don't even need to go back that far to find our next example, only to PKJ's Action Comics Annual, where Superman went up against the magic of Sister Shadow. Now, the scaling from these issues wasn't nearly as blatantly OP as Aaron's Action Comics 1061, but it's not like Nora Stone was portrayed as a non-threat. This is a villain who had been systematically wiping out super families and had just absorbed the powers of Etrigan and Bloodwind. Despite being inside her own magical Susano, Superman flies right through it to stop her and save his family. Again, and I must reiterate, this isn't new. Superman powers through magic again and again and again, almost every time. So what's the explanation? Well, it's probably easiest to say, and the most honest, that the writers just don't have all of this in mind when they're crafting a story. They are interested in writing cool scenes with ever-increasing stakes and aren't really thinking about things like, what does weakness really mean, let alone power scaling. Comics just have a reputation for being notoriously inconsistent, and stuff like this honestly doesn't help that reputation at all. And where does this leave us? I've gone on record as saying that the words on the page mean what they mean. The author's intent does matter. So if a bunch of writers are consistently telling me that Superman is weak to magic, I'm going to accept it. At the same time, I don't really think we can or should be expected to ignore what's actually happening on the page. Feats are feats are feats. They matter. So how do we resolve this? My simple answer would be to just write out the weakness. It's an antiquated byproduct of when people considered Superman to be too OP, they needed things to take him down a peg. In fact, that image is still so strong that you will oftentimes find writers putting in new weaknesses if they feel the story calls for it. But that's boring, and I'm not an editor for DC Comics anyway, so I'm just gonna tell you how I've started to look at it.
Superman is weak to magic, it's just taking more of it each time. In a lot of Superman's future stories, they portray him as having grown past various weaknesses. And while it's usually becoming more immune to kryptonite, why couldn't the same be true with magic? Could it be we are witnessing this growing immunity in real time? With each spell weaved and each lightning bolt cast requiring new or even more energy, or maybe even workarounds, and Superman is just getting more used to it. This isn't completely unprecedented either. There are examples of Superman absorbing magical energy, and with Infinite Frontiers making pretty much everything canon, writers could really work with this. Or could it be that this is already their intent, and we are seeing Superman gradually becoming more powerful over time and immune to magic?
Probably not, but hey, that's my headcanon for now. As it stands, Superman simply exists in this paradoxical state, one where he is 100% weak against magic, but can still power through outerversal levels of it. You know, you might think that's dumb, but that's just Superman and the problem with magic. Now, I do know that was a lot for such little payoff, but sometimes you're gonna have that when it comes to questions about a character that's been around this long and has so much source material to shift through. Still, I would like to thank anyone who's still watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTuber nonsense.
Why don't you go ahead and tell me about your favorite example of Superman versus magic and what the result was down below. Coming up on the channel, I plan on doing a sleeving video for my Magic the Gathering Legacy deck because I'm so cool. In it, I planned on talking about some questions I've gotten on some of my previous videos and via PMs, and a few even came up on social media. Just ones that I feel I don't have enough, content or maybe even source material to do a full video on, but I'd still like to talk about. If you have anything you'd like to ask about Superman power scaling or versus debating, feel free to shoot those at the bottom as well. Again, I'd just like to thank everyone for watching. That's been Daniel with Truth, Justice, and all of that nonsense. I'll catch you next time.